Hey loves, it's Britt, and woohoo! We're going to talk about a fun synastry aspect. I just did 2 Moon Pluto synastry videos, and now we're going to talk about something lighter. Not that those can't be fun, they definitely can, but this is a completely different vibe now that we're talking about Venus opposite to Jupiter in synastry. So this may be one of the loveliest aspects in synastry that there could be. All Venus-Jupiter aspects are very positive. With the opposition, there can be some sort of difficult things, but most of the time we're not going to see that because it is just an overwhelmingly positive contact to have any Venus-Jupiter thing going on in your synastry. So this aspect really brings out the Jupiterian side of the Jupiter person, meaning their givingness, their generosity, their perhaps extravagance, their tendency to want to even like almost father the Venus person, or that's not the right word, but it's like be the guardian of Venus. It's like Jupiter sees Venus and feels like they've found someone who is just lovely and beautiful and worth giving to in the way that their Jupiter gives. Now that's an important distinction to make. So the Jupiter person is going to become more Jupiterian, but they're not going to change Jupiter signs, right? Like they got Jupiter in Virgo, that's how they're going to give, right? So the Jupiter sign is really emphasized in the Jupiter person. They're really going to be showering the Venus person in that energy, okay? And depending on like the Venus person's Venus and the state of the Venus, like, and whether it can receive that sign that's in opposition to it, is going to depend, like, that's going to be whether this is going to work out positively or not. But it generally is going to work out positively, but like if the Venus person can't receive what the Jupiter person is giving, then the Jupiter person might end up feeling like that they've given too much and maybe they're not receiving enough back. But usually the Jupiter person in this contact is not keeping score at all, and that's one of the beautiful things about this relationship, is that there's a lot of giving, and it really like is coming from a really generous place of the Jupiter person. And the Venus person can in turn give back to the Jupiter person too, because the Venus person can see the Jupiter person as someone who's like inspiring, or even like in some cases like godlike in the way that they live their life. Like they can see them as like larger than life, or kind of like this like funny, uplifting, perhaps more impersonal energy. So that's one of the conflicts, so we'll talk about that. The Venus person can feel like their love nature, like, because Venus is their heart and how they love and what they value and what they find pleasurable. And the Venus person can feel like at times that maybe the Jupiter person is a little bit too like far out for them, or it's like, yeah, the Jupiter person is kind of impersonal, maybe not like a nurturing, caring, like even like speaking their love language at times. It's like, yeah, the Jupiter person is off, motivating and inspiring and giving, but like the Venus person's personal needs are like over here, and the Jupiter person is like far out over there. Now this could actually show up in a relationship where like maybe it is a long distance relationship and like the Jupiter person is actually physically over there, far away, right? Or it can show up in relationships that have philosophical differences, like the Jupiter person's beliefs are just really contrary to how the Venus person socially relates, or how the Venus person flirts or is in love, right? So it's like there could be differences of beliefs in this opposition as well. So that's one of the difficulties is that the Jupiter person is like all high-minded, well, and then Venus is like such a personal part of us that maybe doesn't always care for Jupiter's far off, wisdom that's not directly relatable to the Venus person's actual heart and, love needs, right? So, but that's not always going to happen. That's just, there could be a subtle undercurrent of like that at times, which is different than like in the conjunction. We don't really see that. But in the opposition, we can see that because these are opposite signs. They are opposing in nature. They do have what the other needs, but at the same time, the opposition, depending on Venus's sign and like how they take this, they could feel like, yeah, the Jupiter person is doing all this giving and like being so generous, but is the Jupiter person actually loving them in the way that they need to be loved, right? Like, and maybe they feel like the Jupiter person is, just a bit far out or maybe they're too intellectual or in their head or not their heart, like their actual like feeling heart. But you could have other aspects in the synastry that is going to mitigate this and, take that part of this out. Like that doesn't have to be a part of it because usually the Venus person is going to find the Jupiter person just downright delightful, even though they are in a sense operating on a different wavelength at times. But usually the Venus person is just going to find them to be lovely because the way that the Jupiter person sees the Venus person in their beauty and their light and their glory, like that's really attractive for the Venus person. So the Venus person will set aside usually any of these differences and just see the Jupiter person as like this just extremely beneficial person to deal with. So this could also be an aspect of like financial gain or loss depending on the rest of the synastry as well, because like they want to give to each other. It is this naturally giving exchange, but there could be over giving, like I've said. But usually the giving usually the giving is going to be done with such an open heart that even if there is loss, they're not going to really notice or care about it because they're just going to think, well, you know what? That person was worth it, or that was a good time. That's the other thing about this opposition is that it's fun. It's a good time. It's lighthearted. It's funny. They're joking around. It's like not. It's not serious. So this is one of those relationships that you could stay friends long term. It could be an excellent aspect to have in a friendship. In a business relationship, you just want to be aware because the way that they see each other, it's not that it's not realistic. It's just that, the overgiving could come out. So you just want to like be aware if this is someone you're giving money to because you're going to have no problem doing that. That's all. This could also be an excellent person to go shopping with if you like to spend money. And it definitely activates those open-hearted, open-handed instincts. Like, I really just envision it as like this big hug, and they both build each other up. Like I said, they really see each other in a highlight. Like the Venus person sees the Jupiter person as like this larger than life person, and then the Venus person or the Jupiter person sees the Venus person as like this beautiful, worthwhile person to just give their most beautiful, open-hearted energy to. So it's a really beautiful contact. I've said beautiful like a million times, but I really like this aspect, and I think that overall it's a really good aspect to have in your synastry, and just be aware of those few difficulties that there can be, but it's mostly positive. You can't go wrong with the two benefics meeting in any aspect. And I do actually, my favorite is probably, well, I love all of them, but the opposition and the conjunction are going to be the most powerfully felt aspects of Venus and Jupiter. So they're going to create the biggest reaction in both people. So I'd love to know your experience of this aspect. Was it like this? Was it not like this? Let me know in the comments. And thank you so much for watching. Talk soon.